guys? It's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 84. Here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing today, man?
Doing excellent, as usual. Happy to be back talking fights with you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Still a little bit shell-shocked about the Khabib retirement. We've got so much to discuss today, Fight Geek, but my first question for you before we do the rundown is, what did you make of his retirement, and how shocked were you on a scale of 1 to 10? Because I was like 11 out of 10 shocked.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I mean, great question. It really, in retrospect, is like a legendary MMA moment. I think a lot of us were shocked. I would give it a 10. I really didn't anticipate. I thought there'd be a lot of talk around him retiring potentially. I didn't realize that he would do it so abruptly and kind of unequivocally, I guess you could say. So, yeah, I was definitely shocked. As soon as he started pulling the tape off the gloves, and they were actually struggling with it, which made it last a little bit longer, it became like really clear to me what was happening. And yeah, it was a pretty shocking moment. And then the words and his kind of message after the fact kind of, made you feel sad, made you, sad to see him go. You understood why he was doing it. But yeah, it definitely was a shocking and, I don't know if melancholy is the right word, but, it was just kind of like it was sad but necessary, I guess.
Yeah, and then now that we're here, we're going to get to the fight in a moment, but I've got to ask you this follow-up question. I had to. Where does Khabib Nurmagomedov sit on your GOAT throne? Where is he in the GOAT list?
On the GOAT list.
As you know, there's been some discussion. John Jones
I know, it's the talk of the town. But
a little unhappy about losing the number one pound-for-pound ranking earlier today. For
the record, I think Khabib 100% deserves the pound-for-pound ranking, especially on the heels of a performance like that. So I don't think that's unjustified at all. On my GOAT rankings, without really putting guys up against each other with a microscope and really weighing a lot of different factors, it's hard to really pin him down. But I would say safely, he's the greatest lightweight of all time. And
come on, give me a number.
And a top 6 fighter in history.
Top 6? Okay, hold on. You got to give your other 5 now. You want me to go? You want me to say my answer?
There's a lot of different elements to go into that. Like I said, there's length of title runs. I would still consider, Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, and John Jones' resumes obviously are far superior in quantity than Khabib's. But if you're going as far as one night in their primes, who's the greatest fighter ever, then I definitely think Khabib has a stronger case there. But the fact that he was fairly inactive throughout his prime and...
Yeah, but I want to hear your list of top 5. I want to hear your list. Okay, here's mine. Number 5, Khabib. 4, Daniel Cormier. 3, John Jones. 2, Anderson Silva. 1, GSP. Who are your top 5?
My top 5 would be Silva, GSP, John Jones.
Okay. So we got GSP and Silva flipped, right?
Yes.
Okay, but we're the same. Yep.
And
number 4.
Because of the title defenses, it has to be DJ.
Okay. And then 5.
And then I think you could say...
Come on. The listeners are waiting.
I guess I could slot Khabib in my top 5 right now. Yes.
Okay. All right. I got it out of him, folks. I wanted to get it out of him. I got it out of him.
The thing about Khabib is,
so he is top 5.
Obviously, he doesn't have a lot of title defenses and a long title run, but I think his title reign will age very well based on the names he beat and stopped. Very top-end fighters. So... well, it wasn't long. I think it was incredibly impressive, and I think his greatest performance was last weekend.
Absolutely, and we'll get to that. Okay, folks, I wanted to start with that question for Fight Geek, taken by surprise a little. Here's the breakdown for what we do have on tap for the rest of today. First, our UFC 254 recap and review. What a fight card that was, Fight Geek. We'll get to that. After that, UFC Vegas 12, Silva versus Hall. We're going to make our picks and previews for that card. Then jumping to outside the UFC for Bellator 250, headlined by a super fight that I think is absolutely amazing. Dare I say, Fight Geek, the best fight in Bellator history. Douglas Lima moving up from his welterweight throne to battle Gegard Mousasi for the middleweight strap. And then finally after that, listener questions and more. But Fight Geek, let's start off with that 254 recap and review. So do we want to start at the top of the card with Khabib and Justin, or should we start with some of those main events that we wanted to go through? Because that was a great card.
Yeah, it was a great card. We're already talking about Khabib and Justin, so let's just go ahead and finish it off.
Let's start there. I thought it was a strange fight in this way, and I want your thoughts, Fight Geek. I thought that Justin Gaethje, for the first 4.5 minutes, fought one of the most perfect fights against Khabib. He looked great out there. I mean, I believe he landed more significant strikes. I believe 2 out of the 3 judges gave Gaethje the first round. I don't know if I agree with that, but Gaethje looked great. But then the second Khabib got him to the ground, Gaethje looked more lost than Al, Conor, and Dustin combined. So I was just, it seemed like a tale of 2 fights. One on the ground where Justin had no shot, and then on the feet where it was very, very intriguing and potentially dangerous for Nurmagomedov.
Yeah, it was intriguing. I don't know if I saw it exactly like you did. Justin did have some success, but the forward pressure of Khabib was really the story, in my opinion. While Justin was handling it somewhat, that pressure from the jump was forcing Justin to move backwards, which is against kind of his natural style. And I feel like that forward pressure eventually made Justin so uncomfortable that he got wild. Obviously, the ground and the takedowns and stuff like that, Khabib had a big advantage, but I think his pressure on the feet clearly fatigued Justin because he was on his back foot, having to fend off Khabib with his strikes. Well, Justin has great counter hooks and leg kicks, so I expected him to land those, and he did land those.
And he did seem to hurt Khabib's legs, I mean, right?
Yeah,
that's got to be talked about.
He was getting to the legs right before, in the second round, before Khabib took the final shot and ended the fight. Justin, I believe, landed 3 leg kicks that were extremely hard to start that round, and the last one before the shot really had Khabib. It lifted the leg off the ground and shifted him sideways. So they were definitely making impact. Definitely think the forward pressure of Khabib was making Justin incredibly uncomfortable, and that's kind of why he started getting a little more wild than we had seen him in at least the previous Ferguson fight, where he was able to kind of stand his ground and really be calculated. I feel like Justin was being very reactive to that pressure.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard this story, but wanted your quick thoughts on it. That the reason that Khabib moved from, I believe he had an armbar, I believe it was an armbar, to a triangle choke, is because he didn't want to hurt Justin in front of his parents. This is according to Khabib's head coach. He said, again, that Khabib did want to hurt Justin in front of his parents, and so by putting him to sleep, he figured that'd be better because he knew Justin would not tap to a broken arm. And do you believe that story? And if so, is that even more sort of mind-bending that Khabib would have that train of thought in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that I 100% buy into that, but it can be like MMA lore, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I mean, I think Khabib was going to try and win that fight at any cost. I think that potentially that was just the transition that was there for him. Again, I don't know. Maybe not. I really don't know on that.
All right. Okay. So we gotta address it quickly before, and we gotta get to Whitaker Cannonier. But quickly, we've got to address what is going to be done with that lightweight belt. A lot of people speculating that McGregor-Poirier 2, which is tentatively scheduled for January, is going to be for that vacant lightweight belt.
That makes all the sense in the world. I think that should be the fight.
You do? Okay, you think that should be the fight?
100%.
Okay. I feel more complicated on it, especially almost knowing that if McGregor wins it, which I like McGregor's chances over Poirier, especially if it's fought at 170. I don't know if they're going to do some 170 for the 155-pound belt fight. But, regardless, if it's at 155, if it's at 170, I like Conor's chances. I feel like he's going to definitely not defend it, at least at any time in the near future after that. He's going to go box Manny Pacquiao and just clog up the division for another year and a half. So,
okay, so what do you think's going to happen now that you've debunked my opinion?
No, that's what I think's going to happen. That's exactly what I think's going to happen.
It's definitely going to that is the fight to make. I think.
But doesn't that annoy you if Conor's going to hold up the belt like that?
Does it annoy me? If that happens, I'm sure it will be annoying, but I do feel like that is the correct fight. I think that Dustin has proven that, he's the superior fighter to Justin at this point through his work and the fact that he has a head-to-head win. Conor McGregor's the biggest star in the game. I think that is the clear no-brainer, especially with Tony Ferguson coming off a loss, Justin Gaethje coming off a loss, and really no one else. So that is the most credible fight to make for that belt. What Conor does with it afterwards is a completely different discussion, but definitely the fight to make.
Yeah, and for people asking me, why do you dislike Conor? Guys, I used to love Conor. I think Conor has an amazing opportunity here that cannot be ignored to come back, not just come back, but reclaim a belt that looked like it. I thought, 3 days ago, I thought, of course, Conor will never regain the lightweight belt. Now it looks like everything but a certainty, and that's great for Conor. That could be great for the sport. I just hope that if he wins it, because I do think he'll beat Dustin Poirier, to be clear. If Conor wins the belt, I just hope that he defends it in an orderly amount of time. But anyways, let's move on to Robert Whittaker versus Jared Cannonier, the co-main event. What a fight this was. Got a little wild in the end. Jared was basically getting beaten up badly the whole time and then hurt Rob badly at the end. Tried to get the finish, did not. Survived an earlier knockdown where Jared nearly got finished, but I actually scored that 3-0 for Whittaker. I thought it was interesting that it was 29-28 across the board. Curious how you scored that.
Yeah, I scored it the same way. Obviously, Rob, in the very waning moments of the fight, got clipped and was a little – I wouldn't say he was in big trouble, but he was certainly, aware of, the closing moments, kind of rode that one out, which is fine. Yeah. It was a great performance, good game plan. Very impressive what he did with a powerful guy like Cannonier. I think you really saw, Rob. At least I was able to see Rob in an elite light again. You kind of saw the Israel knockout, and then it's kind of prove it. It was a good win over Till, but it wasn't overly eventful. So this was really kind of an eye-opening fight for me, and especially considering Robert Whittaker's only 29 years old, which is something I overlook all the time. Very impressive win. Loved the game plan. Loved the composure. He was actually able to land, his tricks and his striking.
Let me ask you this, though. Okay, has Whittaker improved dramatically since his loss to Israel, or has Whittaker always been the second best middleweight by far, and he's simply reminding us? Because that's the only thing I'm trying to decide.
I 100%. I'm a firm believer in especially when great fighters lose, they learn something. We saw it with guys like Dustin Poirier. We've seen it with guys like Michael Bisping. Great fighters who lose, come back. So I see Robert Whittaker in that light, and maybe even better physically and with more talent than those two guys, as a guy who, at each stage of his career, he's taken his lump, come back, and gotten much, much stronger. Now, did we see a huge difference in his technique? And
I think his style is the same, right?
Yeah, his style is the same. But as a 29-year-old man who's maturing and going through life experiences and has dealt with quite a bit of physical ailments, especially leading up to that Izzy fight, I think there's a mental aspect of it that may allow Whittaker to be more competitive. Now, would I pick him? Not necessarily, but I definitely think it's a more intriguing fight than before. And if Izzy's going to stay at 185, the only fight to make right now.
Which fight would you prefer? For Izzy to go up and fight Jan for his light heavyweight title? There's a lot of rumblings that his camp's interested in that. Or the Whittaker 2 rematch right now?
Personally, I would I guess I would lean the Jan fight a little more because I think if he were to take that 205 belt, that really would force John to like come back and fight him and reclaim that. That's a lot of hypotheticals, but I think that's an interesting storyline. More
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
than rematching Rob.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I feel conflicted about it, Fight Geek, because on the one end, I think you're right that the sexier fight is actually that super fight of Israel versus Jan. It feels a little funny calling it a super fight, but it is. It's champion versus champion. That's how I define super fights, and I think it'd be bigger right now.
And wouldn't that force John's hand to
absolutely,
fight him too?
of course it would.
Yeah, because that's John's belt that he'd essentially be holding.
Right. Now on the other hand, real quick, I was going to say, does it feel like Israel has completely cleaned out middleweight? No, it does not. It definitely, to be fair to the middleweights, it does not.
Hermanson,
the Hermanson Till winner
rematch, I'm not sure that there's a lot I'm yearning for.
I mean, don't you think the Hermanson Till winner deserves a shot
I don't
at something?
think Till deserves a title shot at all, even with the knockout victory. No.
Okay, what about Robert Whittaker? We've got Whittaker fans going crazy right now. Both of us.
Well,
screaming,
Whittaker
of course
just said he's going home
rematch.
to be with his family for Christmas, which means he's not going to fight for at least 5 months or
I don't
4.5 months.
think Israel is either. I mean,
so that puts us in March before Rob comes back. So there's a lot of time to book fights in between then. I mean, Rob is clearly the number one contender at this point until somebody else does something drastic, and a guy like Darren Till can't even surpass him because he just lost to him.
Yeah.
So it's Hermanson or Whittaker, and with Jan on the table potentially, I think that both of them are clearly going to be overlooked.
All right. Okay, so let's keep it moving real fast. Alexander Volkov had an incredible TKO via kick to the solar plexus against Walt Harris at 115 of round number 2.
Yeah, it was like a toe poke.
Yeah, Walt just, he lit. You could hear him go, ah! And he just went down.
Yep. Volkov, the experienced veteran, long, tall, huge heavyweight. I mean, kind of what you expected. He's levels above Walt Harris, who I think is a fan favorite because of his backstory and a pretty athletic guy, but was outmatched in that one.
Yeah, one quick thing. So Volkov had a really impressive win, and they asked him who he wanted afterwards, and he just like lazily, you could tell he was literally thinking about this on the spot, and he named, I think he said, I'm even trying to remember now because it was so forgettable. He said Rosenstrike at the end through bad pronunciation, and then I think he was mumbling about Overeem and possibly even Lewis. But can we just agree once and for all, and I totally get that Volkov's first language is not English, right? But can we agree that fighters who are in the top 10, guys, have a plan for who you're going to call out? Make it one person.
That's part of the training camp.
But it's amazing, Fight Geek, how many people at the top fail this event after event after event. And I'm just wondering, what are you guys doing? This is about your career. This is money on the line.
I mean, he's clearly a top 5 heavyweight, so he has the right to call out a handful of big names. And that Derek Lewis fight is a big one for him because he won the whole fight till he got knocked out. So there would have been plenty of reason to cut a promo in multiple ways.
Yeah, so anyways, not to call out, poor Alex Volkov here because a ton of fighters are guilty of it. It blows my mind how top-ranked fighters continue to blow this. Anyways, moving on quickly, got to cover the incredible 18-second KO that Phil Hawes gave out to the previously undefeated Jacob Malkoun on the main card. That was an incredible victory for Phil Hawes at 185.
Yeah, explosive finish. I mean, what are you going to say about that? He came out, looked good. He looks the part. Definitely excited to see what's next for him.
I feel like we maybe have some middleweight stuff happening just outside the top 15. And, okay, I'm thinking Marvin Vettori. I realize he's 14 as well. But
Marvin's calling out Chris Weidman's of the world. He's not going to fight a newcomer like that. He's looking for a name.
Yeah.
And I think Marvin's already – isn't Marvin scheduled?
So, I believe so, yes. No, Marvin's definitely scheduled.
Yeah.
Marvin's 100% scheduled right now.
Who's fighting Jacare next?
I don't know. I'm not your young Jamie. You guys see this? Jacare. Yeah, I knew it. He's fighting Jacare next, literally.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, Jacare versus Vettori. So that's
UFC
a good one.
256, December 12th.
So yeah, he's not looking to fight guys like that. He's going to be looking to fight guys, fringe top 15 guys at this point.
Yep. Okay, so have to really...
Gerard Meerschaert needs a bounce back fight.
Oh, jeez. Okay, got to really quickly cover. Lauren Murphy got a rear naked choke submission from Yulia Shakarova at 125. Suddenly, women's 125 has a few people at the top.
Yeah, couple players at least.
Couple
on paper.
Players, which is nice.
Right.
Lauren Murphy.
What do you think of her call out? Since you're being critical of people calling people out, did you think her call out was warranted?
Did she call out Valentina? I honestly don't even remember. It was very forgetful to me.
She basically was like saying she deserved the next title shot. She's not going to step in the cage again until she gets a title shot.
Then she'll be waiting for a while because she's got Cynthia Calvillo and she's got Jessica
Andrade.
She's on
a 4-fight winning streak.
You think that she deserves it more than... I mean, well, forget deserves it. What am I talking about? This is the UFC.
Does she deserve it? Yeah, she probably
Wait, right, but this is the UFC.
It.
They never do anything based on who deserves anything.
Right. Well, that's exactly her point.
Calvillo and Andrade will both get title shots before her. And I'll be honest, normally I would take the side of, the fighter.
I thought Jennifer Maia might
I just don't like Lauren Murphy. I've never liked her ever since the tough season. When she blamed Eddie Alvarez.
Unbiased for once, Phil, and make a...
She'll always be that person on Tough that lost in the first round and then cried about Eddie Alvarez being a horrible coach. Like, to me, she'll just always be that person.
All right.
But
Let's keep it moving.
Well, hold on. What would
you... So what? Would you want to give her versus Andrade for a number one contender fight?
Yeah. How do you think that fight goes?
I think it's interesting. I'll tune in. I'd like to see it.
Oh, come on. Andrade makes quick work of her.
I think Lauren Murphy's incredibly underrated. She's big, she's strong, and she's fairly technical. She can strike. She's got a couple submission victories. So, well, she's not, maybe a big fan favorite. I think she's a little underrated.
Okay, all right, we got to keep moving. Finally, the final fight of the main card. And by the way, Fight Geek, I really wanted to quickly say 254. I'm pretty sure from the beginning to the end, I'm going to go out and say it, card of the year.
Ugh, I don't know if I can agree with that, but...
What was better, 251?
I don't know. You're always asking me to, I watch a million fights. I don't
254,
remember.
I think it might have been card of the year. But Magomed Ankalaev and Ian Kudalaba had their famed and haunted rematch. I say haunted because the rematch had been canceled 3 times in a row.
Definitely a decisive conclusion to that saga.
Very decisive, with Ankalaev getting the first round knockout. Didn't you pick
Kudalaba?
Oh man, it's funny how you remember these little. Yeah, I did. Congratulations on that one little win. Didn't you? Didn't you pick Cannonier with me? We both got Cannonier wrong. Is that the best I got? All right.
I think that's the only one I got wrong on the card, but.
Oh, here we go. Fight Geek had to sprinkle it in without seeming too eager. Okay, everyone. Oh, here.
All right. So
everyone's playing golf clap. Golf clap for Fight Geek. Did you really?
Yeah, I think I went 9-2.
Okay. All right. See. Okay. Moving on.
I wanted to call out Tai Tuivasa. Got a big win. Obviously,
he did.
I thought Miranda Maverick looked amazing.
Yeah, I loved Casey Kenny. Nathaniel Wood was a great fight.
Great fight. Really enjoyed that. Joel Alvarez, even though he missed weight, is a tricky guy who presents a lot of problems. So, yeah, I think it was a very interesting card other than that Zhang Alvi fight, which I could have done without.
I agree. That was like a drunken bar fight.
Oh, that's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so are we ready to move on to UFC Vegas 12? Uriah Hall versus Anderson Silva.
Yes.
All right, let's do it. So, UFC Vegas 12, we're going to start with our picks for the main card real fast. We got to jump through these because we've got a lot of great listener questions tonight. Bobby Green versus Thiago Moises.
Thiago Moises?
What did I say?
I don't know. But anyways, there's a lot of close fights on paper on this main event, or on this main card. I'm going to go with Bobby Green. It's tough competition for him, but he clearly has the experience. And the last few fights, Bobby Green has actually shown some maturity and some game planning, not just kind of being wild out there. So I like it. I like him here.
I got Bobby Green too. Really quick, the last fight of the prelims I just realized is Alexander, that little shit Hernandez versus Chris Grutzmacher. Who you got in
Yep.
that one? Because that's a fun one. I'm rooting for
Is that a
Grutzmacher.
joke?
Huh?
Is that a joke? Who do I got? That's a no-brainer. Alex Hernandez is
I'm
going to
rooting for
destroy
Chris.
Chris Grutzenmacher.
I know.
And if Alexander Hernandez doesn't finish him, then everything I know about the world of MMA is wrong.
Oh man, I don't like Alex Hernandez ever since that this cowboy shit talking
Well,
of him getting
let's
killed.
not. I mean, this is a lopsided matchup.
Yeah, they're giving him an easy W here.
Well, this is what it is. It's a bounce back fight to see if they can salvage anything from Alexander Hernandez. Because, I mean, if you've watched these guys fight, there's no way you can make a case for Grutzenmacher. But
I was talking about who I was rooting for. I agree with you.
I know.
Okay, moving on. Greg Hardy versus Maurice Green. This is an interesting heavyweight
The crochet boss versus the most hated man on the roster. Interesting fight.
I think it's a real interesting fight, and I would, this was one I enjoyed thinking about and playing out, and I've got Hardy by unanimous decision, 29-28.
I've got Hardy by second round TKO.
Wow, that would be a big statement win for Hardy.
Would it be? Maurice Green has weighed in with a cigarette in his mouth, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm pretty sure
no,
he won
he's
that
looked
fight.
good recently, and he's got the reach. I just think that Hardy's going to be a superior athlete. Hardy's actually had an extended layoff, and we've seen him improve each time, so I'm expecting him to probably be improved.
Yep, absolutely. Moving on, we've got the 24-6 Mahmoud Muradov versus Kevin Holland. This is a fun middleweight bout.
Amazing fight. Love this fight.
I've got Kevin Holland by unanimous decision here.
Yeah, I'm going to go the same way, but I'm going to have it by split decision. Kevin Holland, I know that Muradov is talented and a dangerous guy, but Kevin Holland is really hitting his stride and presents a lot of problems. He has length. He's tricky. His striking resembles John Jones in some ways, especially with the way he uses his kicks. Super high on Kevin Holland. Easily one of my favorite younger fighters on the roster. I'm going with him split decision.
All right. Now time for the co-main event. It's a featherweight bout between the 13-0 undefeated Bryce Mitchell and Andre Touchy-Feely. That never gets old saying that.
Yeah, what another fun fight to break down and try and pick. Bryce Mitchell, clearly surging prospect, but I think this might be a touch too much for him right now. Andre Feely, while he's not necessarily a top 10 guy in the world, he's come up with the team alpha male, which means his wrestling and his grappling is going to be very sufficient. On the feet, he's long and tricky, and he can really, put together some good strikes. So this will probably be the biggest test Bryce Mitchell's ever faced. And with that said, I'm going to take Feely via decision.
Wow. You know what? We are breaking here. I've got Bryce Mitchell ready via second round submission.
That'll be interesting.
And I know Feely's got great ground game, everyone. I get it. I've got a feeling that Bryce, I do think Bryce is going to...
If Bryce submits Feely, that would be impressive in my opinion, because like I said, he's been training with Team Alpha Male forever, and those guys grapple.
Bryce is gonna hit his head coming up, but it's not quite yet. That's my prediction. Not quite yet. Okay, moving on to the main event. Anderson Silva's final fight. So sad. It's currently 34-10 versus the surging number 9 contender in the world at middleweight, Uriah Hall, 15-9. Fight Geek, who you got?
Yeah, well, it's very fitting that the Spider will retire on Halloween. I kind of love that storyline. As much as my heart and everything in me wants to make a case for Silva, if I gotta pick, it's gotta be Hall. Silva's just limited at this point. He's so far advanced in his career that it's hard to make a case for him to win. Do I think it'll be competitive? Will it be an Izzy Anderson style point striking match? I do think it'll be similar to that with Uriah taking a decision. But Anderson Silva, in my opinion, at his prime. His title run is still the gold standard in the sport. It'll be a bittersweet night for sure because huge fan of his. It's clearly time for him to move on, but, it's time.
There's something wrong with the fact that we are going to be losing Daniel Cormier, Anderson Silva, and Khabib Nurmagomedov all in the same.
Henry Cejudo, which that's less likely, but
Henry Cejudo as well, unless he comes back.
I mean, that's for first ballot Hall of Famers, no doubt.
I mean, that's for I think top eight all-timers for me.
Exactly.
Or top 10,
and I know
certainly.
the newer generation of fans don't really seem to have the appreciation for Anderson Silva, but I mean...
Oh, he was fantastic.
What he did was from special. His debut against Iron Chin Chris Lieben,
oh yeah,
up until he broke his leg in the second Chris Weidman fight, I mean, I don't know how, you can outdo that run,
Absolutely. So are we... yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I just want to wax poetic about Anderson Silva for a while, but we can move on.
Okay, all right. Just because we've got a lot of great listener questions, wanted to quickly go to outside the UFC for Bellator 250. It's happening this Thursday, folks, at 8 p.m. Eastern. I normally have been hating on Bellator lately because I am very salty about how hard they make it to watch. But I know Fight Geek has CBS Sports Network. I do not have CBS Sports Network, so I'm going to have to find a stream. But I'm not missing this fight. It's a super fight between welterweight champion Douglas Lima and middleweight champion Gegard Mousasi. As you know, Fight Geek, Douglas Lima is one of my favorite fighters in mixed martial arts right now. And
100%.
He's going up to fight Mousasi, who has already won a super fight in Bellator when he stopped Rory McDonald originally in a super fight when he came up to fight him at middleweight. That did not go so well for Rory. How do you see this fight going between Mousasi and Lima? I can't wait for it.
Well, I want to go on the record as saying, yes, this is the greatest Bellator matchup of all time.
So you agree with me? You agree with me?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you just look at where these guys are at in their career currently, I don't think that they've ever put together a more elite fight than this. It's such a tough fight to pick because, Gegard has been at lightweight in the past, or light heavyweight in the past, and used to dealing with bigger men, so that was kind of a big advantage for him versus Rory. But I expect Lima to present a lot of different problems. A, he's bigger. B, he's a more athletic, fast-twitch striker on the feet, and those leg kicks are a big problem. I'm actually going to take Lima via decision.
Whoa! Did not see that coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a case both ways, but based on the recent activity, I personally think that Lima's the best fighter on the Bellator roster. So,
oh man, you're putting me in a weird position, Fight Geek. I want Lima to win so bad. So let me just make that clear. I'm rooting for Douglas Lima very, very hardcore here. I agree with you. I saw their stare down. Lima looked big. He did not look significantly smaller than Gegard. I just know Gegard has fought at light heavyweight many times. I want to say he's even fought at heavyweight.
Yeah, but he lost to Rafael Lovato not too long ago.
Well, that's true. That's a great point. I think that Gegard is going to win. I don't think it's going to be, really dominant. I see it going to a unanimous decision, 3-2 for Mousasi. But man, do I hope I'm wrong and that you're right and that Lima pulls this out, because that'd be amazing.
Either way, it's going to be one you cannot miss. This is a prime example that there are elite, great fighters outside the UFC. Definitely check it out. It's going to be good.
Absolutely. Okay, so with that, folks, we're going to take a really quick break, and then we'll be back with listener questions and more. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude letting you know that this episode of the Split Decision Podcast is brought to you by TotalAggressionClothing.com. Visit www.TotalAggressionClothing.com and use the promo code 46210 to receive a special Split Podcast discount on all Total Aggression hats, shirts, hoodies, and more. Again, that's www.totalaggressionclothing.com with promo code 46210. Hey guys, it's Phil the MMA Dude back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 84, here with my always brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek, and it's now time for my favorite section, Listener Questions!
Alright.
Okay, now I'm sure I'm getting worse every time I do that. Now I'm sure about it.
Practice makes perfect, Phil.
I don't know with me. I think practice makes... Okay, well...
You might be overthinking it.
All right, fair enough,
Just
fair enough.
let it fly.
Let it fly. All right, I'm going to let it fly. So our first question comes from the man, Zan Bando, and he says, what to do at 155? Do you make Poirier McGregor 2 at 155? Big emphasis on 55. For the vacant title, hashtag AskSplitPod.
Yeah, I think we stated that previously, or at least I did. I definitely think that's the fight to make. I know Conor can present problems if he's the champion, but that's definitely the most credible fight to make.
Yeah, and again, we touched on this a little. I disagree, Zan. I really think that what you do there is you make a 4-person tournament, and I know you're going to say it's not happening. Well, I don't care. This is my answer, and I'm saying that you do Tony versus Conor and Justin versus Poirier 2 and have the winners fight for the belt. End of story.
All right.
And I know that's never going to happen. I'm aware of it, but a guy can dream.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. So, moving on. This question comes from our man, Jokers LL. That's at Jokers LL. Love this guy. He says, if Khamzat Chimaev can fight equally as well at 170 or 185, which division would he have the most success in? Which top 10, top 5, and champion is best suited for his skills? Hashtag AskSplitPod. Ooh, this is a fun one.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I believe the jury's still out somewhat on Chimaev. I know, he's the flavor of the month right now.
Well, we're about
Everybody
to
loves
find
him.
out with this Leon Edwards fight.
Well, that's a big, big step up from Mearshart. So I'm eagerly anticipating that one. I do believe, he's better suited for 170 personally.
You do think that despite the fact that he knocked out GM3 with one punch?
Yeah, I mean, again, I haven't seen enough. You've shown me what? How many? Have I seen that guy fight for 90
people
seconds?
Have seen 3 fights.
Yeah, 3 fights, 90 seconds total in the cage. It's really hard for me to gauge his overall skill, which I think is, obviously he's an elite talent, no doubt about it. But this Leon Edwards fight really will give us the kind of data we need to start making educated, projections of his career. But he looks like an elite top 3 or 4 170-pound guy to me. I'm not sure at 185 he's going to be big enough and strong enough, but that's yet to be seen as well. I would say his competition at 185 was not necessarily that stiff.
Okay, well, here's where things get interesting, and I disagree with you again, Fight Geek. So you say that, 170 is the easier path, and yes, I agree with you in theory that 170 would be the easier path. If someone's showing, potential in both, you go with the lighter weight class, right? But,
right.
But here's the thing. The champion and the top few fighters, especially after Leon Edwards at welterweight, they're all wrestlers. At least they're very good at wrestling, especially the champion, Kamaru Usman. So, that's really Khamzat's bread and butter is wrestling. So the question is, does he run into more trouble there than against, say, in Israel Adesanya, who is almost entirely a striker, has, essentially no wrestling.
Well, considering we've seen him throw less than 10 strikes on the feet, I think it'd be hard to say that he could beat Israel.
I understand that we don't have all the answers yet. This is supposed to be a hypothetical
So
fun
what I'm
question.
going off of is what I've seen. Him knocking out Mearshart doesn't make me think that he's necessarily ready to stand with Israel Adesanya.
Okay, all right.
But okay. I do trust his grappling acumen versus all 3 of the top guys in the division of 170.
So you would pick Khamzat Chimaev to beat Kamaru Usman?
If I had to pick a fight where he'd have a better chance, Kamaru or Izzy, I would think that Kamaru would be the better fight for him. Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
You think Israel Adesanya is a better matchup for him?
I think we don't have enough information yet, but
100%.
Well, do you see why I'm saying that? I mean, Israel's a striker, Fight Geek, and Usman is a wrestler.
Which is technically out of Chimaev's wheelhouse. So what I'm saying is at 170, the champions and the top contenders are guys who do what he's dominant at and what he's familiar with, which means he would be more comfortable in those fights, which would be more conducive to him winning those fights.
Oh, well, we're disagreeing. I'm saying that if Usman's a great wrestler, I mean, I would think that'd be more problematic, right? Wouldn't you want to impose your wrestling on someone whose wrestling isn't a strong suit of their game?
I mean, I guess that's one way to go about it, but I mean, again, we don't know exactly how great his striking is.
Right.
There could be a huge gap between Izzy and Chimaev's striking, which I would imagine the gap between Izzy and Chimaev's striking is much wider than the gap between Usman and Chimaev's wrestling.
Okay. We have gone entirely too far down the rabbit hole with this question. Moving on, but to a related question. This is from at WWE UFC _fan Oscar Silva. Love Oscar. What's up, Oscar? He says, if Chimaev were to starch Leon Edwards on December 19th, what would be next for him in your opinion? And this is a great question because things get really interesting here, right?
Yeah.
Because, let me just present the question to you outright. I think this is the big question is if he starches Leon, as in, he gets a knockout in the first few rounds, is he going to jump Gilbert Burns in line against Kamaru Usman?
No, I firmly believe Burns will fight next.
I agree with you. Because, and the reason I say that is that I've seen that Dana seems legitimately interested in Burns versus Usman as well.
Exactly. Dana's always been very supportive of that fight.
Yeah. So I agree with you. So then does Chimaev wait or does he have to fight someone else?
At that point, no. He's going to have, even if he starts his Leon Edwards, in my opinion, he still probably will need the one fight because Leon Edwards never took that number one contender fight to prove he's that guy. So he's somewhat, even though Leon Edwards is like number 4, he's somewhat like in the mix. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
He has never won like a top contender fight.
Absolutely. And by the way, I say, if Hamzat wins that, make it Covington. Colby Covington.
Or maybe I could see even if he beats Leon Edwards, he may still have to fight a guy like Wonder Boy.
Okay. Ooh, and that could be interesting for all kinds of different reasons too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I actually don't dislike that fight.
But to consider that, with 2 more wins, he would have a title shot within 4 fights in the UFC is still incredibly impressive.
Absolutely. Okay, so our next question comes from Eduardo, an OG of the show. This is at Landa Crew. Give him a follow, everyone. He says, what were your thoughts on the early start time of UFC 254? And what would be your ideal start time? #AskSplitPod. And real quick, Eduardo, I got to say, on the West Coast here, the prelims started at 8 a.m. On a Saturday. That's just a little too early for me. I did it. I woke up, I did it, but it was a little too early. But ideally, look, I love this during the day thing. Ideally, have prelims start at 12 noon, make it an afternoon.
Yeah, I didn't really love the morning cards. I'm good with it starting at, 2 p.m. and ending at 9 p.m. That's kind of my bread and butter for a card.
See, I like it. I like how it kind of ended up wrapping up around, again, a little too early, too. I would like the card to wrap up ideally around 6 or 7, right? I guess that would make sense if you started at noon, right? So. Yep. Okay, so we're in somewhat agreement there. I think your answer is a little more married person, but okay. All right, love the question, Eduardo. Thank you. And then the next question comes from Glitch. What's up, Glitch? At MMA Port. He says, #AskSplitPod. What fighter at 155 benefits the most from Khabib leaving the division? And
this is a no-brainer. Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor.
Not even debatable.
Not even close.
Like you said, Conor, it was a pipe dream to think that Conor McGregor would be the 155 champ a week ago ever again. And now there's a chance that he could reclaim that and all of his glory, which honestly was unthinkable previously. So, yeah, I mean, he stands to gain the whole world back, honestly.
Yeah, pretty crazy. What? Although it is worth noting, you said regaining everything in all its glory. I don't know about that. I think that
Well,
Khabib
I mean,
left
he'll
a
never
final.
be this.
Khabib did leave a final little ding by saying, "You'll never get that rematch," and I
Oh,
destroyed you.
100%. But I mean, there's still going to be a whole, generation of people that as soon as Connor has any semblance of success are going to jump right back on that train is what I'm saying.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
especially when if he earns a belt and they have a little fuel to their argument, it's going to come for sure.
Absolutely. Okay, this next question comes from another Split Podcast OG who always brings the fire questions. Jalen Ware, that's at strive2b_ great. Love this guy. He says, no one's really adding Tony into the title picture. As a co-main to Dustin Connor, should UFC grant him a rematch with Gaethje or a fight against Chandler, Oliveira, or Hooker? Winner face winner of Dustin Connor for Khabib's belt. Hashtag AskSplitPod.
I mean,
Yeah,
honestly, the matchup for Tony right now, who's in kind of no man's land, really feels like Michael Chandler.
Listen, no disrespect to Michael Chandler, but he
said
needs
that
to go and
week.
back up. And
all right, well, actually, I take
also,
that back.
Also, didn't you just argue the exact opposite
I
last
did.
week?
I argued the opposite last week, but I feel like that's the only
Look
fight being
at
talked
you,
about.
flip-flopper, flopping.
Honestly, I don't know why I said that. Charles Oliveira versus Tony Ferguson would be a wild matchup to A, let Oliveira prove he's a top 3 fighter, and B, let Tony Ferguson prove he's still a top 3 fighter. So that is a great fight to make. The Chandler thing is just being forced down our throats. That's why it's kind of in my thought process as well. But I clearly think Charles Oliveira deserves that fight versus El Kukui much more than Chandler does.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I'm just going to come out and say it. Look, I've seen Michael Chandler live. He's a good fighter, but
Michael Chandler should fight Paul Felder. I feel like that's the
Michael Chandler is chinny and will do absolutely nothing at 155. Let me go on record. He will definitely never be the UFC lightweight champ. 100%. I will change my background photo to something of Fight Geek's embarrassing choosing for 1 year if he becomes champ. For 1 year.
Who would he debut against?
I think he should debut against Felder or Dan Hooker.
Both of those are fair. I think Dan Hooker give him a lot of problems. I think both of those guys.
I think both guys beat him. Oh, I think both guys beat him.
So yeah, please.
All right. Moving on. Love that question, Jalen. Moving on to Peter V. What up, Peter V? He says he's at PV1224. He says Khabib sounds like a man of his word. So when he says he's retiring, I believe him. That said, do you think he'd be enticed to come back for a one-off catchweight super fight with GSP a year or two down the road? Hashtag AskSplitPod. Great question, Peter.
It is a great question, and I 100% agree that, when a lot of fighters retire, it's easy to not believe them, but because of the kind of man Khabib is, you really believe that when he steps away, he's stepping away. But with one caveat, I think even Khabib's dad, looked at GSP in a certain light. So if Khabib was ever going to consider ever coming back for a fight, the only fight I could see that being for would be GSP at this point, based on that fact.
I agree. I have to agree with that.
In 2 years, though, a super fight with GSP will be dead. GSP is already aging far out of his prime, and it would be at a weight class he's never fought at. So the longer we wait for this, the longer it becomes impossible to make and irrelevant to make. So I think he's really retired, but if there was one fight, it would be the GSP fight. But if he's leaving and is not going to come back, GSP is going to be too old to be interesting anyways. So
yeah, and I do think I do think that Khabib is one of those people who, when he gives his word to someone, especially like his mother, someone so close to family. He does intend to keep it.
100%.
So unfortunately, I don't think we'll be seeing Khabib back in the octagon anytime soon. And
I really think
I'm still in shock. I'm still in shock.
Yeah,
man.
so am I. But I think he's going to assume that coaching and leadership type role on that team, because you can already see the way he promotes Islam and some of his other teammates. He's still all about his team.
Absolutely. Okay, moving on to my homie Dean Dog. That's at Dean Dog 3. He says, "Is there any such thing as the GOAT? I say no, but it sure seems to be what a lot of people are obsessed with. Hashtag AskSplitPod." And if I could just start this one off real fast, the short answer, Dean, is no. There's honestly not. It's all very argumentative. But Fikey, go ahead with your answer. What do you think?
Yeah, no, there is no such thing as the GOAT. It's very, subjective.
It truly can't actually be measured.
It's based on taste. I think that there's parameters that allow us to identify people in the conversation, but there's no way to unequivocally weigh them against each other. So it's the beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and it'll always be that way. Same with pound for pound lists, I wouldn't take it too much to heart. If you're a person who watches the sport, loves the sport, and knows the sport, make your own list and consider it fact.
Absolutely. This is a great question coming up next from our man, Pat Tobin. That's at Pat_Tobin. He says, thoughts on John Jones fighting harder on Twitter for his GOAT status than he has in the cage for many years? Is he making good points or just showing his insecurities? Hashtag AskSplitPod.
He's doing both. He's making some points, but he's showing his insecurities big time.
I don't know how closely you've been following it, Fight Geek, because, guys, I know that...
I've seen about 7 of his posts, so I don't know if that's all of them or just some of them.
Fight Geek's such a loser that he keeps a healthy amount of social media per day and does not consume vast and unhealthy amounts like me.
I've got the gist of the story that
but
John
he's been on there for a good 3 days. Or no, 2 days.
Profusely, arguing his case as the GOAT, which is, something we just proved is technically irrelevant. So if he really wanted to prove that he was the GOAT, he would have already signed to fight Stipe Miocic or Brock Lesnar or someone in heavyweight or Israel Adesanya. He has the status right there. He could hammer it home with a number of names, and it would be, I know he's always going to have, the steroid cheating thing attached to his persona. Yeah. But if he was really, really, really that interested in stamping out that is an ironclad thing, he would take on the heavyweight champion of the world, wouldn't he?
Yeah, well, in his defense, Dana did say that he does not get to jump the line over Francis, and that they're doing Francis Stipe.
But I'm just saying, if he's that desperate to prove his point, then wouldn't he want to be going out of his way to do things like that? Clearly,
yeah, no, listen, I completely agree.
It's hard to argue against Jones, but other than the egregious, test results on multiple occasions.
Well, and let me just say this, Fight Geek. Jones has been coming undone over Twitter on the last 2 days, literally tweeting like a crazy person, on it all day, just tweeting, trying to put down Khabib and talk about,
that's the strangest part to me is, even if that's what you believe, can Khabib have his, 72 hours?
But that's why I think it's showing. That's why I think I agree with Pat so much. I love his question so much, because what we're really seeing here is Jones almost admitting, yeah, I'm not the GOAT. I did need drugs to win. I did need performance enhancers, and I'm not the best.
No, see, I don't think that's what he's
projecting his insecurities.
I don't think that's what he's saying.
Then you wouldn't need to scream it. Then you wouldn't need to scream it over social media like a madman. He's humiliating himself. Everyone's making jokes left, right, and sideways.
Well, the fact of the matter is, though, is that if John in his head still feels like the picograms thing is not a big deal, and
hold on, that was only one time he got. Don't confuse people. He got caught for picograms once. Twice he got caught with a ton of steroids in him. So let's just be clear.
I know. What I'm saying is that if you listen to John talk, he truly still acts like he did nothing wrong, 100%. So he still views his career through a lens where he's done nothing wrong.
But if that were true, why wouldn't he let Khabib have his moment?
Just stop. Just let me finish my point. So if you were to look at John Jones's career through a lens where he's done nothing wrong, it's undisputable that he's the greatest fighter to ever live.
If you are looking through John Jones' career through a lens where he's done nothing wrong, then, you probably need to be in a mental hospital. That's an alternate reality.
Yeah, I'm saying he's a little bit delusional because he continues to not accept the fact that, the MMA fan base will forever, at least that's part of the conversation. If that's part of the conversation, you can never be competitive with a guy like GSP for, the GOAT status. I don't know. I'm contradicting myself all over the place.
Well, one thing I want to quickly mention, I think the funniest part is he started off yesterday. He said, "I'm not going to argue in the GOAT debate. I'll let the fans do that for me."
And then he
2 hours later, he's going crazy making videos. Because guess what? Not enough people came to have his back.
The GOAT discussion is so confusing and nauseating, especially with, the different variables to take into it. Like I said, everybody make your own list and consider it fact.
All right. Okay, so our I believe final written question comes from Edward. My man Edward, that's at Edward J MMA. Love this guy. He says, "Do you guys think Khabib versus Gaethje was the best title defense from anyone ever, considering the circumstances, personal, caliber of opponent, reported broken foot 3 weeks earlier, and the performance Khabib gave? I personally think it was. #AskSplitPod." Wow, that's a great question, Edward.
Yeah, off the top of my head, it would be hard to find a better performance.
I'm trying to think here. Adesanya against Costa, I know it's recency bias. 253 and 254.
Adesanya versus Costa was similarly
And how
dominant.
insane is it that they were back-to-back pay-per-views?
Yeah, talk about elite fighters in their primes. Yeah, I think those two fights are very comparable, actually, because they both really did what they...
And they both made it pretty effortless against opponents that people were giving a lot of chance to.
I guess the fact that Khabib was having, the foot injury and still didn't allow that to really play a factor in the fight at all would give him the edge. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
and the stoppage.
Combined with the father's death, I think, and the undefeated record. Yeah, I'm comfortable calling it the best. I'm comfortable calling Khabib's the best.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so do we have any voice questions? It looks like Juice was fighting with myself.
I have 3 of them.
Oh, 3? Awesome. Sweet.
Yep. So I'll queue up Juice's first.
What's up, Phil and Fight Geek? This is Juice from the Fighting With Myself podcast. Fellas, I'd like to talk about the GOAT conversation for a moment. I know, hard eye roll, but it's got me thinking because the recent victory of Khabib over Justin Gaethje and subsequent retirement has caused just a wildfire of nonsense all over the timeline about the criteria for which you can define the GOAT, greatest of all time. And it's never something that I've wanted to do because it's not really quantifiable, but a lot of people are really in their feelings about it. And so I want to, with that said, this week we have Anderson Silva fighting Uriah Hall. Now, Anderson Silva has been on many people's greatest of all time lists. However, he's on a pretty big skid. Just even if you count wins, since Chris Weidman beat him, he's not really been the same. And so, how do you view losses in the overall discussion about greatest of all time? Because I think when you look at Anderson Silva's body of work, one can say that he was the greatest of all time at one point, at least. And so I want to ask this also. I know I'm kind of spouting a lot here. But one of the other things that people discount Anderson Silva's greatness for is his PED infractions. So how do you weigh that, but also body of work, and how do you incorporate losses? Let me know. Love you guys. Love the show.
Man, the GOAT discussion is the discussion this week, huh?
It is indeed, and it's a great
So,
question.
I mean, I've been all over the place. I'm obviously, critical of Jones for his multiple PED infractions, yet still have Anderson Silva as number one fighter of all time. And here, let me just try to explain why. I mean, it probably won't make sense.
Silva had
and
2,
again,
Jones had 4, by the way.
Yeah, but Silva fought the majority of his prime in his title run in an era where they didn't drug test. So technically, or hypothetically, every single one of Silva's opponents could have been on steroids as well, which somewhat nullifies the era he fought in.
Ding, ding, ding. I hate to agree with you, but you just nailed it, Justin. You nailed
what
it,
we know for a fact is that DC did not cheat in a fight that John Jones did cheat in. So there is a cloud of uncertainty around at least the highest level of achievement around their title reigns.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
mean,
I agree completely.
It's not a perfect answer, but that's
relevant.
what you have to go to.
No, I agree there. People ask me too why I put Silva above Jones. I mean, first of all, I do think that Silva's strength of schedule, this is controversial, but I think it was a little better. I know that Jones had some big names, but almost all of them were there. They were just over the hill when he fought them. But what I was going to say is Anderson Silva and John Jones do not come from the exact same time. They really don't. As Feike just said, when Silva was fighting for the belt, everyone was juiced out. There was no USADA. Jones is the difference because Jones was cheating when everyone around him was forced to no longer cheat if they had been because of USADA. Now I understand that there's people that beat the system and get away with it, but I do not believe it's 50% of the promotion. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And look, if you get away with it, you get away with it. I don't know what to say. You can't hold it against someone for suspicion of doing anything. So that's what it comes down to. Anderson Silva's drug infractions were, while not good and while they do hurt his case, I think they're just not as significant as John Jones's because, like you said, Jones knocked out Daniel Cormier, and that was his last knockout. It turned out he was juiced to the gills during it. So, again, that was turned to a no contest as it should have been, and it's just going to hurt Jones's GOAT status a little bit more than Anderson's. But it's a great question, Juice, because it's a very intricate and tough answer.
100%. There are no right answers. Like I keep saying, make your own list, consider it fact. Here's one from Jim Assoon.
What's going on, you bunch of fucking casuals? Phil, Feige, hope you're both doing good. My question for you this week is, who's going to be the next lightweight champ? Or I guess I should say, who's going to be the first lightweight champ? That's my question. I think we already know it's going to be between Conor and Dustin, right? We know that's what Dana's going to make. So anyways, who's going to be the first lightweight champ? It is what it is, and it is always 420. Peace.
Yeah, I mean,
Uncle Jim, love it. There seem to be some screaming dogs in the background.
I thought it was like monkeys.
Hopefully Uncle Jim's okay.
In the rainforest? Where are you at?
I don't know, Uncle Jim. I hope you're okay. That sounded a little chaotic back there, but great question. I agree with him. It's going to be between Dustin and Conor.
I'm not ready to pick, but man, I'm not ready to write Dustin out of that fight yet.
So here's what I have to think about that. Look, I know how much Dustin's improved. I know how great of a fighter he is, but I do think there's some truth to even what, Ali Quinta was saying the other day. Some other fighters at lightweight were sort of expressing some disgust with Dustin for being so friendly with Conor, saying, oh, thank you so much for taking this fight. Thank you for the $500,000 to my charity. That will help so much. I can't wait to put on a show with you. I do think there's some truth that Dustin goes in mentally defeated with that kind of we're friends attitude. And I don't see Dustin winning.
100% don't believe that. Dustin Poirier's a balanced adult human. He's not, because he's
That's what we all said
acting.
about Cowboy. How'd that turn
Well,
out?
Cowboy, what are you talking about? Cowboy's notorious for that. Dustin Poirier's been respectful to a lot of his opponents. He just beat the hell out of Dan Hooker, and they were respectful. Actually, no, Dan Hooker wasn't very respectful to him. But my point is that Dustin Poirier, has shown that his character and what kind of guy he is. So I don't think that's that out of the ordinary for him. I mentioned this last week. Conor has a knockout win over Dustin Poirier, and with the kind of competitor I believe Dustin Poirier to be, that is all he needs to show up and be his absolute best that night. And now you're going to add the undisputed lightweight title of the world on top. I'm not going to say that Dustin Poirier, one of the most proven mentally tough fighters on the roster, is fanboying Conor and at a disadvantage. I don't believe that.
All right. So, does that mean that you're picking Dustin to win this fight?
I'll save that for, in our breakdown, but I think it's a very, very close fight and could go either way for sure.
I'll be rooting for Dustin Poirier for the record, everyone. I'm rooting for Dustin because I don't believe that Conor's going to be an active champion at all. Hope I'm wrong about that though if Conor wins, but I predict Conor will win that fairly easily, but I'll be rooting hard for Dustin. Then, do you have another question?
We got our last question.
No, I got one sent from Kairos, super last minute that I'm trying to figure out.
I got a voice question for Kairos, so how are we going to do this?
Oh, wait. Oh, okay, maybe he sent it to both of us. Yeah, just play it.
All right, I got the last question from Kairos.
Kairos!
Right, it's coming.
Anytime now, Justin.
It's coming.
Hey, what's going on, Phil? Hey, what's going on, Viking? I got two questions for you. What the hell is happening at strawweight right now? We haven't seen a single high-level bout happen in that weight class since Weili versus Joanna. That's a little bit of an overstatement. There have been high-level bouts, but I just mean we haven't seen the champion fight. We haven't seen the number 1, number 2, number 3, etc. contenders fight in a minute. I'm just trying to figure out what they're doing with that division right now. Secondly, why do you think the UFC doesn't do any Grand Prix style tournaments? I understand they have to keep their own brand and not emulate other people, but it also causes a massive logjam in division, similar to how 155 was for years, similar to how 145 is stacking up to be right now. And if they started doing a Grand Prix style of matchups, who do you want to see fight who at 155? For me personally, I would like to see Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. And then I'd like to see Dustin and Conor, obviously. And I would like to see Justin Gaethje either fight somebody or get a win before they try and reintroduce him to the title. I don't like the idea of someone coming off of a loss, fighting for a title, no matter how much I like them personally. What do you guys think about these things?
Kairos.
Great questions.
Love it.
Definitely don't think you should get a title shot coming off a loss. I think that should be, an ironclad rule. I like Chandler versus Oliveira, but going back to
I like that a lot.
I really like Oliveira versus Tony. I think that offers all kinds of challenges for both guys, and Oliveira deserves why Oliveira, if I'm reading between the lines, thinks he should fight for a title. Do you think he wants to fight a debuting guy who...
But people are... Okay, but to play devil's advocate, Fikey, people are already trying to insert Chandler into, I've seen people try to insert him into a 4-man tournament. It's like, get out of here, Michael Chandler. Oh, my God, bro. Prove yourself. So at the very least...
Yeah, win a fight.
But that's the argument for the Oliveira fight, though, is over Felder or Hooker, who maybe are too far down to even be in this little mini tournament type of thing.
I think Oliveira is that wild card. I mean...
Oh, yeah, 100% he is.
Yeah,
100%.
And he's the guy who hasn't... I mean, he has the Kevin Lee win, but, Kevin Lee has been a bit up and down.
I will not tolerate Kevin Lee slander. I tolerate a lot from you. I will not tolerate Kevin Lee slander.
Oh, you're a fan of that tattoo?
I don't think anyone's a fan of that tattoo. I think he saw Hellraiser too many times, got drunk, and made some horrible decisions.
I think Oliveira versus Chandler is a good, solid, exciting fight. But I'm just a firm believer that Chandler should fight Felder, and like you said, Hooker's another good choice for him.
Yeah, and I agree with Kairos about Gaethje has to fight again. Don't just throw him right back in there. He just lost a title fight. Look, I think that's fair. I think that's very fair, more than
100%. And then. I mean, Gaethje versus Michael Chandler might be a fight you could look at. So
that's a fun fight. That's just, rip Michael Chandler. Rip Michael Chandler.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure. And then he also mentioned the straw weights, Wei Li versus Joanna, the rematch.
It's a great
Obviously,
point.
Joanna took a ton of damage. So did Wei Li in that fight. And then we're waiting on Rose, who fought not too long ago. So I think there's kind of a little bit of a three. All three of them are just holding it up. I would assume that Wei Li versus Rose will happen maybe even on that Connor Dustin card, something like that, beginning of next year to kind of sort that out, and then Joanna maybe in March or maybe a little later, April.
Yeah, I agree, and yeah, I think that it's interesting you point that out. I totally agree that the top three women at strawweight really, I feel like it's those three, and then there's a huge drop off, especially now that Jessica Andrade, Cynthia Calvillo, they've both moved
Absolutely.
to flyweight. So it's Wiley, it's Rose, it's Joanna,
And
it's everyone
let's
else.
just make sure Wei Li versus Joanna won probably took multiple years off both of their lives. I mean, they can have the rest of the year off. I think that's the extended break. Both of them
That was
took
fight of the year still.
a
It's still fight of this year.
metric ton of damage. It was unbelievable.
Oh yeah. It's still fight of the year.
So I mean, that's expected for them to have, the longer layoffs, and especially since Rose had an impressive win in the meantime, kind of shakes it up. I'm sure behind the scenes they're negotiating to see if it's going to be Joanna or Rose.
I'm certain. I'm almost 100% certain that it's a done deal that it's Rose.
Well, yeah, that's who it should be. But let's say Rose, something strange happens with her, then she dropped out or something.
I almost feel like they teased it. Like they oddly teased the fight on it at a UFC. Did they? Maybe I'm imagining things. I think it's a done deal. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it should be. It just I have a feeling it'll be early next year.
Yeah, absolutely. But then, so if that's a done deal, here's the question, Fight Geek: who does Joanna fight? Because I actually noticed, everyone was talking about Tisha Torres. Obviously, she's had this really bad luck with injuries, but she's now dropped all the way to number 10.
Yeah, and she's fighting someone. I can't remember. I think she just got booked.
Yeah, I believe you're right. That Tisha does have a fight coming up. Let me see who that's
So I honestly, I think Joanna could just sit out and wait.
Oh, I think she absolutely could. I mean, she's certainly a big enough deal, right?
Well, not only is she a big enough deal, but her resume, I mean, you're just going to make her, go through the ringer for no reason. Joanna only has a handful of fights left based on the style of fighting she does. She's in a war every time. She's taking, volume of strikes every fight. So I don't think you're going to see Joanna in a lot of fringe fights anymore. They're going to be super fights, and that's it.
I agree. And Tisha Torres is rematching Angela Hill at UFC 256 on December 12th. That'll be fun.
That will be fun. I would favor Angela Hill right now.
Yeah, that's going to be a really great fight. It'll be a big test for Tisha to see where her level's at now. But yeah, Kairos, great point about strawweight, and I think that Wiley, Rose, and Joanna are going to be battling for years to come in those top three spots. Personally, I think they're cut above the rest in that division. But great questions. Guys, check out the Shots Fired podcast with Kairos. That's great. He's also got an awesome YouTube channel. And is that it for the questions for the day, Fight Geek? Are we done?
That's going to do it.
All right. Take it away.
All right, guys. As usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, Stitcher, and more. I'm at the Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil, the MMA dude. And we are at Split_podcast. 4 words, The Split Decision. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.
Peace.